With the Pokemon Go competitive meta being rocked by the addition of the powerful Fairy Steel type Tinkaton just 1 week ago, it might come as a surprise that the very next regional championship was dominated by a Dark type Pokemon, Malamar. My name is Homeslice Henry. I am one of the official casters for the Pokemon Go Championship Series, and I was actually lucky enough to get to cast this tournament live in Milwaukee. Now, this tournament was dominated by the Dark Psychic type Malamar. Its moveset is Psywave, Foul Play, and Superpower, and the trainer who won the entire tournament is Out of Pocket. And this is the team that he used: Shadow for Alligator, Tinkaton, Jumpluff, Diggersby, Malamar, and Lapras. Pocket had unfortunately lost early on day 1, which meant he had a difficult road ahead, as he would have to win 11 series in a row if he wanted to claim the title of Milwaukee Regional Champion. His first streamed match was against SJ21, who himself is a 2-time regional champion, so this was going to be a very difficult opponent. For game number 1, it was a negative lead for Pocket, leading Malamar into the new meta star of Tinkaton. Tinkaton has the typing advantage, but Malamar has a pacing advantage, getting to the superpower before the play rough. This will hit for neutral damage, and after this lands, Pocket will be able to switch out, preserve the Malamar at almost full HP, and SJ did not bring a good check to an opposing Tinkaton, so he's forced to stay in and fire off Bulldozes. Bulldoze number 1 did not get that defense drop. We are going to see Bulldoze number 2. The no shield again by Pocket. There's the defense drop coming through. Pocket over farming ever so slightly and firing off a Bulldoze of his own in retaliation. This Bulldoze will not be enough to knock out, does get the defense drop. Even at -1 defense, Pocket's Tinkaton should be able to hang on here. So the Bulldoze is going to land. Pocket very low. SJ sends in the Jumpluff, looking for the snipe, but Tinkaton barely hangs on, a fraction of health remaining to make the play rough, and now he's going to send in Malamar. As you look across the team of 6 for SJ, you can very safely argue the fact that Malamar's 2 worst matchups on paper are Shadow Jumpluff and Tinkaton. And that's what Malamar so far has seen. So it seems like SJ knows that Malamar is a key Pokemon for Pocket, and so he is trying not to let Malamar have success. But Malamar has found these quote-unquote bad matchups and is still getting value anyway, as Malamar is going to end up double shielding Aerial Aces. Malamar farms up, SJ with a beautiful switch and a catch onto the Tinkaton. Pocket not going to hit any bubbles, undercharging to leave it at 1 HP and get a Psywave right back. In comes the Jumpluff, but now it's Pocket's turn to make a devastating catch. You can tell both these trainers have been regional champions before, as this caliber of play is amazing. He brings in the Malamar. Malamar farms down the Fairy Wind using Jumpluff, and all that's left in the back is Furret. So SJ brought his 2 best Malamar counters. The Malamar was aligned onto those Malamar counters, and it just did not matter, as the back-to-back superpowers are available, even at -1 attack. This will just do way too much damage to Furret. Switch clock not up, so Malamar is going to get farmed down, but in comes Jumpluff. Pocket did mention after the tournament that he ran the regular Jumpluff because he just did not have a good Shadow that didn't have frustration on it. So in this instance, Shadow or not, either Jumpluff is able to take the win, but if you wonder why the regular, that is his reasoning. So now Pocket up 1-0, but a tough lead leading into Claydol. We're going to see a safe switch into Diggersby, and Diggersby, there is a decent check available in the Lapras. But SJ, very comfortable just staying in this matchup. Claydol has so much loaded energy. Diggersby is going to launch a Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands is going to connect. Claydol switches out, and there is the Diggersby check as Lapras is going to hit the field. My guess is the reasoning behind not sending in Lapras instantly is Diggersby, if it's able to get multiple Scorching Sands debuffs, can actually win the zeros. It's only a 9% chance of back-to-back Scorching Sands debuffs, but that is still a possibility. But in playing it safer, tanking a move and then bringing in the Lapras, this desyncs the switch timers. Pocket preserves health on the Diggersby and sends back in the Tinkaton. Tinkaton is not in danger of being knocked out by 2 Sparkling Arias. The switch clock still not available for SJ. SJ, unable to escape this matchup, is forced to fire off yet another Sparkling Aria. For Pocket, he's very happy absorbing this damage, as he actually does get a little bit of value here. He is going to be firing off this Play Rough at the Lapras. SJ deciding to let this through. Play Rough is going to land, and Lapras will get KO'd. In comes Claydol. Claydol looking for a farm down. The Bulldoze is reached. That's a 1 HP Tinkaton, barely hanging on. Bulldoze not going to do much. We're now going to see a switch into Malamar, but it's a simultaneous switch out. Malamar into the Shadow Jumpluff. We saw Malamar in game number 1 do quite well here. Malamar is down a shield, however. This is an even energy matchup, so things could get a little bit uncomfortable. SJ not baiting, going straight for the acrobatics. Decision time for Pocket, only 1 protect shield remaining. Gonna let it go. Acrobatics lands, Malamar hangs on. It survives, it gets to the foul play, and Malamar, so deadly, even in its worst matchups, it's getting farmed down, but Pocket saved all the energy on that Diggersby. In comes the Diggersby, getting to unleash a Fire Punch, and SJ is going to burn the final shield on this Jumpluff. There is still a catch available for Pocket. He gets the catch once again, catching that move onto the Tinkaton. And undercharge will still be enough to knock out. Back in comes the Diggersby. The Aerial Ace is reached. Pocket will know this cannot be an acrobatics. There's 2 moves stored on the Claydol. He's going to let it go. He clicks the Scorching Sands, anticipating the switch in. SJ is going to bait here with the Rock Tomb. He needs to try and survive this Scorching Sands. And now, this is a -1 Scorching Sands. Will it be able to knock out the Claydol? Scorching Sands does not. That's a 1 HP survive on the Claydol. SJ survives. He gets the click Scorching Sands, knocking out the Diggersby. What a series, and we're going to game number 3. For the decisive game 3, it's going to be Tinkaton versus Tinkaton. For SJ, he has the Lapras and Shadow Jumpluff in the back. For out of pocket, the Malamar once again. Switch advantage would be incredibly important here, as if you're able to get the Malamar aligned onto the Lapras, we've seen Malamar do amazingly even in its quote-unquote bad matchups. So if Malamar gets in a good matchup, then things could get very interesting. These Tinkaton are going to be trading Bulldozes back and forth in this matchup. It looks like both were actually able to get debuffs. They both overfarm and throw at the same time. So now we know SJ does have the higher attack Tinkaton. Bulldoze is going to land. We see a second debuff come through. Another Bulldoze launched at SJ. Now, will either trainer decide to go for a catch of a Bulldoze onto one of their back Pokemon? Pocket tries for the catch. SJ reads him like a book, over farming. He would have let Pocket take the zeros there, but he was so confident Pocket would try and catch. Losing switch advantage and not getting a catch is really, really tough for Pocket, but Scorching Sands gets that 30% attack drop, and that's incredibly important for Diggersby in this matchup, because 2 Sparkling Arias go from knocking out to suddenly not being enough to KO. Look at the amount of damage that the Lapras just did. This next move will not knock out. Pocket knows this, so he is going to let this go, as that clutch debuff will allow him to make 1 final Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands will not be enough to knock out the Lapras either, but it will get the Lapras pretty low. Switch timer's up, in comes the Malamar. It's a simultaneous switch out. Neither trainer wanting to give the other even a half-second advantage in this final matchup. We will see the foul play grab an early shield from SJ. SJ will continue to overfarm, and now he will opt for an Aerial Ace bait. Decision time for Pocket. He's thinking about it. Malamar, no shields, and gets it right, calling the bait, and suddenly that puts SJ on the defensive in this matchup. He will not be able to Fairy Wind down. He will have to make it to 3 more Aerial Aces. He's very close to 2 more Aerial Aces already, though, and that is going to grab a shield from Pocket. Pocket pretty close to a foul play here. He's farming up, gets the foul play, but there's the catch. SJ, very nice catch there. Pocket with an undercharge onto the Lapras, but it still KOs. So SJ making a wonderful catch in this decisive game number 3. Jumpluff has energy. Jumpluff going to be firing off this Aerial Ace, and for Pocket, he decides to let it go. He is trusting in his other 2 Pokemon to bring home the win. In comes Tinkaton. Tinkaton farming up, and he gets a catch. He says, anything you can do, I can do as well. Beautiful catch onto that Diggersby. And now Tinkaton re-enters the field. Play Rough will be enough to knock out the Shadow Jumpluff here. Shadow Jumpluff will not survive. In comes the Tinkaton. He tries to get to the back-to-back, but he cannot get there. This was an incredible back and forth series, but Pocket emerges victorious and advances to day number 2. But the path in day number 2 was going to be a difficult one, with many incredible trainers ahead of him. The first opponent is Vergy, a trainer running more of an old school team with the Azumarill Shadow Drapion core that normally gave Malamar fits. And we're actually flashing forward here to game number 3, which looks to be an absolute disastrous start, leading Malamar into a Azumarill. There's a catch attempt onto Tinkaton. The catch attempt is unsuccessful, and now Dugong is going to hit the field. Dugong behind on energy, but does have access to super effective Drill Run in this matchup. Pocket, Play Rough is going to connect, getting that Dugong pretty low. Dugong just now into the yellow health, going to be full, sending a Drill Run. Pocket shields at the last second and gets the shield call right. Unfortunately, the second Play Rough will not be enough to knock out here, so Pocket is not going to throw it. He is going to wait until the Play Rough is actually able to pick up the knockout. The Drill Run lands, but he knows he cannot have the Malamar aligned onto the Azumarill, so he's going to do whatever it takes. But Fergie came prepared. He brought a second Malamar counter in the Charge-a-Bug. So Tinkaton is going to get a nice farm down. Out comes the Charge-a-Bug, and this is where things will get quite tricky. Play Rough is going to be shielded up by the Charge-a-Bug. Pocket switches in, catches a mid-volt switch, and will get to fire off this Foul Play. Foul Play will do some solid chip damage. Fergie has the ability to switch, but he stays in, trying for the X Scissor. He will not get there, and this Foul Play is going to land on Charge-a-Bug. So all the energy that was stored at the start actually finds an efficient use. If he shields the X Scissor, he's getting KO'd by a Play Rough, so he's just going to sacrifice the Malamar. It's all up to Lapras to try and close out this game. Lapras is going to be met with a discharge, and Lapras will end up committing the shield. Switch clock is still up for Fergie. He's able to send in a Azumarill, go for the Play Rough, and there's the catch out of Pocket, doing everything he can in this matchup, trying to stay alive. The Play Rough is going to pick up the knockout, but Pocket is running Skull Bash on his Lapras, and Skull Bash allows Lapras a guaranteed defense boost, which will make this endgame even more difficult for the Azumarill. At this point, Pocket has a very straightforward path to victory. It is just not letting Fergie catch the Skull Bash. If Fergie's able to catch the Skull Bash, Fergie can win the game. However, this is a 3-turn fast move on Azumarill, so Pocket's just going to make sure he throws in the middle. The switch timer actually isn't even available quite yet for Fergie, so Pocket leaned in to make sure that he couldn't catch it, but the clock wasn't up regardless, and Pocket is going to be able to take this game number 3 and advance in this series. He led a Malamar into an Azumarill Charge-a-Bug core, 2 Pokemon that are supposed to be Malamar, and Malamar just keeps on winning, defeating its quote-unquote counters, and he's going to advance to losers round 3. As opposed to the more old-school team that Fergie was running, Teddy Bear is running a team a lot more similar to SJ, where he has the 2 Fairy Wind users of Jumpluff and Tinkaton, and outside of that, he's actually running some different Pokemon in Primeape, Unova Stunfisk, Credilli, and Feraligatr. So again, not a lot of bad matchups for the Malamar, so Malamar going to be a key contributor once again. Malamar aligned into Tinkaton, and we have seen this matchup play out where Malamar able to throw 13 Psywaves, fire off the superpower right before the Play Rough is reached, and this does inflict some pretty nice damage onto the Tinkaton. Teddy Bear will elect to let this go, and now Pocket is going to look to actually save switch into Jumpluff. Jumpluff is technically a matchup that Tinkaton is able to emerge victorious from, but if you've already chipped down that Tinkaton with a superpower, suddenly Jumpluff looks pretty fine here. Jumpluff is going to overfarm quite a bit. Acrobatics is going to lose the CMP tide to the Play Rough. Acrobatics will not be enough to knock out here, but it will potentially set up an Aerial Ace being able to KO after. Teddy Bear opting to let this through as well. Pocket gets to land that damage, and now we will see a pivot out into the Shadow Feraligatr. Building up to the acrobatics, baiting with the Aerial Ace and getting a shield as Shadow Feraligatr is not the tankiest Pokemon around. Back in comes the Malamar, and Malamar will immediately look to commit a shield. This Malamar has successfully weaved in and out, superpowering and dipping, re-entering the battlefield later, and it's just a nuisance to every team that fights against it. We're actually going to see Pocket choose to go for a massive overfarm here. He's going to double shield, farming up close to 100 energy, and this Foul Play will easily knock out Feraligatr. Teddy Bear still has a Protect Shield, not going to use it here, fully sacrificing that Feraligatr. All he has left in the back is the Shadow Primeape, and look at these Psywaves go! We see a nice catch by Teddy Bear, able to catch the Foul Play onto Tinkaton, but those Psywaves already did so much damage. The Foul Play undercharge is going to give a little bit of extra farm. In comes the Primeape, and Primeape will immediately be met with a superpower. This will burn the final shield for Teddy Bear, as now he is shieldsless, but It's Tinkaton time, and this Primeape is running Ice Punch instead of Close Combat. This means it doesn't have the closing power in endgame scenarios, and a Rage Fist is not going to do a ton of damage. Tinkaton gets the Bulldoze, and Tinkaton is going to be able to take this game 1 win, as Bulldoze, not the greatest move, but that plus a Fairy Wind will be enough to remove Primeape from the field. Bad lead in game number 2, leading Tinkaton into Stunfisk. The Malamar save switch is unanswered by Teddy Bear, as even being down by half a second as the Feraligatr means Feraligatr is going to lose that matchup. Now, Pocket knows this is an incredibly dominant matchup for Malamar. Malamar absolutely crushes Stunfisk. Malamar fires off the foul play. Stunfisk already at Mud Bomb number 2, but 2 charge attacks will not be enough to knock out the Malamar, whereas Malamar's 2 charge attacks will actually KO the Stunfisk. So Pocket is going to look to farm up as much energy as possible, going for the Superpower right before the 3rd move is reached. Superpower is going to be enough to knock out this Malamar, and it leaves Pocket with an ability to make a charge attack into whatever gets brought in here. It's going to be the Shadow Primeape, and now Primeape has to deal with a Superpower. It's been debuffed, but this is a Shadow Primeape. It's forced to go down a shield. Primeape now going to be met with Tinkaton. And with no close combat available, this is a very comfortable no shield for the Tinkaton, as Shadow Rage Fist is not something that Tinkaton has to particularly worry about. Tinkaton is just going to look to farm up more energy and will actually end up using a shield here. So Tinkaton deciding to shield the 2nd, preserving a bit of health in case it's something that's going to be problematic for the Diggersby. So now we will see the Bulldoze launched at the Primeape. Primeape opting to let this go. Bulldoze is going to pick up the knockout. In comes Feraligatr, and look at the overfarm that he did. He overfarmed enough that if it's the Feraligatr, he can outpace. He's baiting with the Bulldoze. Teddy Bear calls the bait. That's a nice play by Teddy Bear, but unfortunately for Teddy Bear, the uncomfortable thing here is that he's just going to get too low on his Feraligatr. He called the bait. He did everything that he could, but this is a range where Diggersby can honestly just go straight Fire Punch once the quick attacks add up, and due to Diggersby's normal subtyping, Feraligatr can never farm down. Feraligatr, it needs 3 Hydro Cannons, and it simply cannot get there. Teddy Bear knows he has to call the bait, but even no shielding a Fire Punch, he's still going to get too low. And we're going to see Diggersby get the farm down and secure the series 2-0. The next matchup against Rise to the Occasion, the only trainer to have won a regional every season that Pokemon Go has been a part of the Championship Series. Rise's team again features the double Fairy Wind duo with Jumpluff and with Tinkaton, and he's pairing it up with Shadow Primeape, Lapras, Feraligatr, and Stunfisk. So 5 of the 6 Pokemon the same as Teddy Bear's team. We're actually going to start with game 2 of the series, with Rise already up 1-0. So for Pocket, this is an elimination game. He has to win or his run in the tournament is done. And this is not a particularly comfortable lead. Tinkaton into Shadow Feraligatr. Shadow Feraligatr is going to strike first with the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon does not knock out, which means Tinkaton will put the first shielding pressure of the match onto this Feraligatr. But over time, Feraligatr in the 2s has the ability to Shadow Claw down. Hydro Cannon number 2 is launched by the Feraligatr, Pocket deciding to fully sacrifice the Tinkaton. So down goes Tinkaton. Now he gets to send in Malamar, but this tells Rise that there's something weak in the back to the Feraligatr, so he's going to bank energy and send in Jumpluff. Malamar has back-to-back foul plays here before Jumpluff is able to get access to its acrobatics. Foul play number 1 is going to connect, going for foul play number 2 after 1 additional side wave. Rise knows this still will not be enough to knock out. Malamar would not appreciate acrobatics, so here is going to be the switch by Pocket. Pocket sends in the Diggersby, understanding that Diggersby is going to be able to absorb the acrobatics no problem. However, a second acrobatics could prove to be problematic, so we are going to see Pocket firing off the Fire Punch just to ensure that he can remove this Jumpluff from the field of play. There is still energy available on the Feraligatr. It gets brought back onto the field. And now here's where Pocket's 2 shields will be very, very helpful, as he's going to be shielding up the Hydro Cannon, looking for a full farm down. The Feraligatr is going to get another move, and just like that, he goes from 2 shields to 0 in a split second. But the important thing is that he still has a lot of health on the Diggersby. In comes Tinkaton. Tinkaton is going to be hit with some pretty significant damage here with the Scorching Sands, so it's forced to burn a shield. And now we see the switch into the Malamar. It's going to be a race here. Malamar able to outpace, making it 2 to this superpower, and this is very important damage, as now this is going to put the Tinkaton in a range where Diggersby will be able to knock it out. And Diggersby is still in a range where one player up will not KO. Rise is going for an undercharged Bulldoze, hoping for the Fairy Wind farm down here. It's going to be very, very close, but the Malamar hangs on with fractional HP, makes another superpower, and now this is just going to be Fire Punch range. So all that's needed for this Diggersby is to not let Rise catch. In comes the Diggersby. Diggersby going to be hit with the Play Rough. This will not be enough to knock out. This game will come down to the wire here. Diggersby farming. Does Rise go for the catch? He does not, and we're going to see Pocket take the game. Pocket Fire Punch is going to be able to pick up the knockout there onto the Tinkaton. In comes Feraligatr. That gets farmed down. Diggersby barely clinging to life, but Pocket forces a game 3. And in this game number 3, he sees an absolute nightmare lead. Diggersby is staring down a Shadow Primeape. And he is so weak in the back to Primeape, he can't afford to switch in the Feraligatr, as Feraligatr would get destroyed as well. The only saving grace is how glassy the Shadow Primeape is, but this is still a very tough spot to be in. Rise farms up past the double close combats, and in my eyes, that is a misplay, as he actually forces the CMP tie, and for Pocket, this guarantees that he can get the shield back, because Rise can't use the second close combat unless he shields, because he forced the CMP tie on close combat number 1. So now Pocket is going to get outpaced here. The back-to-back close combats are reached. We're going to see a catch onto the Malamar. This is going to do so much damage. Malamar gets absolutely rocked. Rise stays in with the Primeape. He was worried about switch locking that Jumpluff, so instead he's going to stay in with the Primeape, pick up the KO, but now this match is going to turn on its head as there's a 1-0 shield Shadow Feraligatr, and this Feraligatr has an energy advantage. So things are looking very difficult for Rise. Rise sends in Tinkaton, needs a catch to win it. We're going to see a Bulldoze bait by the Tinkaton, and that is going to be shielded up by Pocket. Pocket doesn't really mind even if this is the bait. He just needs to make sure that a Play Rough is not able to land. So he will be firing off the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon is going to connect. Pocket overfarms, so he has 2 in reserve. Now, the reason he does this is in case it is the Jumpluff in the back, he can get the Ice Beam when they get the Aerial Ace, and of course, we know it is. So with his perfect energy management, he's gonna get to the Ice Beam, and that's gonna be a game win for Pocket as Ice Beam connects, Jumpluff gets one shot, and that is a good game. Pocket now moves to the Losers Finals, where he's up against Nighttime Clasher. These trainers are actually running identical teams, but Pocket has Skull Bash on his Lapras over Ice Beam and the regular Jumpluff instead of the Shadow, but these two did actually build the team together. So in this matchup, it's honestly, I find some of the more skill-based matchups are when almost all the Pokemon are the same, because it comes down to how you play it rather than the Pokemon that you use. We're actually going to see a mirror lead in game number 1, Tinkaton versus Tinkaton. And this, because it's the Losers Finals, is now a best of 5 series. Both Tinkaton over farming here. We're going to see Pocket strike first with the Bulldoze. Taking a look at the back lines here. Pocket, behind his Tinkaton, is running Feraligatr and Lapras, and for Nighttime Clasher, he has Feraligatr and Shadow Jumpluff. These Tinkaton are trading Bulldozes. The question is, when will we see a switch out of this matchup? We're now going to see a catch attempt onto the Jumpluff by Nighttime Clasher. Great patience by Pocket, holding on to his energy, and now gets to fire off Play Rough. Play Rough is going to connect, dealing nice damage to that Jumpluff. But if you're Nighttime Clasher, honestly, this is not the worst spot to be in, as Nighttime Clasher is able to save nice energy on that Tinkaton. He will elect to commit the shield on the Play Rough, and now he can look to farm up and go for the Acrobatics. Shadow Acrobatics, even when resisted, is going to deal quite a lot of damage, so the Acrobatics is going to connect. Tinkaton barely hanging on, and now the Aerial Ace comes through. Pocket going to surrender the Tinkaton. Tinkaton has done its job, was able to output a lot of damage, and now in comes Lapras. Nighttime Clasher is farming up a lot of energy here, builds up to the Acrobatics, will bait with the Aerial Ace, and the bait is successful as Pocket is going to commit a shield. Nighttime Clasher is now safe to commit to an Acrobatics, knowing that the threat of a second Acrobatics will force Pocket to throw a Sparkling Aria. So Sparkling Aria will come through, Nighttime Clasher gets to let this go, but what Nighttime Clasher has is a healthy Tinkaton outside of Sparkling Aria range with already over a Play Rough stored. So back in comes the Tinkaton, and the energy stored from earlier suddenly becomes extremely threatening. There's going to be a switch into the Shadow Feraligatr. Nighttime Clasher able to outpace due to the one-turn switch in and get to the Play Rough. Play Rough would inflict so much damage. Pocket lets it go, gets rocked, and Nighttime brings in his own Feraligatr. Shadow Hydro Cannon unleashed by Pocket is going to be no shielded by Nighttime. He knows this is not the move that will knock him out, so he lets it go, gets the Shadow Claw farm down. Back in comes the Lapras. Lapras would have to try for a Psywave down to win, but this Feraligatr is just too healthy. Feraligatr is able to force the shield. Here is the attempt at the Psywave down, tried to pull off the win, but it's just not going to happen. And Pocket realizes it. He fires off the Sparkling Aria, hoping it's 1 HP, but it's not. We do see the Hydro Cannon loaded on the Feraligatr, and Nighttime Clasher is able to take the 1-0 advantage in this best of 5 series. For game number 2, Pocket decides to bench his Feraligatr. Instead, we actually have a Lapras Mirror on the lead. Immediate save switch by Nighttime into the Malamar. Pocket looking to bank energy and now send in his non-Shadow Jumpluff. Non-Shadow Jumpluff doesn't have the damage output of the Shadow, but of course, by being not Shadow, it also takes a lot less damage. So the Psywave Foul Play combination is a lot less threatening. We will see the Acrobatics launched by this Jumpluff. Nighttime Clasher going to invest a Protect Shield onto the Malamar. As Malamar slowly gets chipped away with the Fairy Winds, these Foul Plays will start to actually put pressure onto this Jumpluff. The second Foul Play lands, and suddenly this is Psywave plus Foul Play range. This is only an Aerial Ace, so Nighttime Clasher knows he can afford to let this go. So he is going to be no shielding as the Aerial Ace is going to land, and now he can look to farm up to 2 more Foul Plays. There's going to be a catch by Out of Pocket. He's able to preserve it, make a nice catch onto the Tinkaton. Tinkaton gets a little bit of chip damage on it, and now it's going to get a lot of chip damage on it as Superpower comes out from the Malamar. Superpower is going to connect. Tinkaton takes quite a bit of damage, and now this is pretty close to Psywave plus Sparkling Aria range. And it actually is Psywave plus Sparkling Aria range. So the Play Rough is going to be launched by the Tinkaton, but for Nighttime Clasher, his Lapras escapes being aligned onto the mirror, which is exactly what he's hoping for, because he can't really afford to have his Lapras, which doesn't have Skull Bash, against Pockets, which does. Sparkling Aria is going to connect. With the Psywaves, it is going to be enough. And now Pocket gets to send in his own Lapras. Nighttime Clasher gets to immediately fire off the Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria is resisted damage, but Psywave is an incredibly cracked move. Now we will see the Skull Bash come out from Out of Pocket. Nighttime is going to let it go. His Lapras is going to get knocked out here by the Skull Bash, and now Pocket's defense has increased even more. In comes the Malamar, and it's going to be a nightmare to try and farm down. We see the switch into Tinkaton. He banks the move for later, and Tinkaton's ability to survive 2 Sparkling Arias is going to be massive for Nighttime Clasher. Once again, Sparkling Aria connects. He's able to hang on. Another Sparkling Aria is reached, and for Nighttime Clasher, he will invest a Protect Shield just to force Pocket to throw again. Pocket now going to be hit with a Bulldoze bait. He's no shielding. He's calling the bait here. Bulldoze, do we see the debuff onto the Lapras? We do not. Lapras going to now be hit with another Bulldoze. This one he has to shield, as a Bulldoze would actually set up a Fairy Wind farm down. So he will commit the shield. Switch coming up soon, but a CMP sack swap from Nighttime Clasher. Not only does he catch the move, but he wins the charge attack priority tie as well, erasing that energy. In comes the Jumpluff. Jumpluff gets the farm down, exiting with a shield. In comes Tinkaton. Tinkaton now going to be hit with this Acrobatics. Acrobatics does do quite a lot of damage. He just has to try for the farm down here. Can Pocket get the move? He cannot. He's forced to settle for the Aerial Ace, and that's not going to cut it. Non-Shadow Aerial Ace does not KO. Nighttime Clasher takes a 2-0 lead. If Out of Pocket loses any one of the next 3 games, he's eliminated from the tournament. And he leads Shadow Feraligatr into Tinkaton. We saw in the Pocket vs. Rise games that this will typically favor the Feraligatr. We're going to see a beautiful catch from Out of Pocket. He doesn't even have to risk whether this is a bait or nuke if he catches it onto the Diggersby. Diggersby answered with Malamar, and this is exactly what his line is designed to do. Try and lure out Malamar with Diggersby, and then his Lapras should be in a pretty nice position to try and close in the endgame, and he also has a ton of loaded energy available on that Feraligatr. Diggersby gets the Scorching Sands debuff, which means this Malamar is now not going to hit nearly as hard. Superpower connects, but the next Superpower will not be enough to knock out. So, Out of Pocket realizing this is just going to go for the Fire Punch. Nighttime Clasher decides to let it go and actually sacrifice the Malamar and go for energy on Lapras, but now Out of Pocket is going to bring in the Mirror. He is down energy. We're going to see a switch into Tinkaton. So much energy saved by Nighttime Clasher, but this Tinkaton is in a range. It's lost enough health throughout the course of this match where 2 Sparkling Arias will actually knock out, whereas they typically do not. Play Rough is going to be shielded up by Out of Pocket, and getting the shield call right is quite nice. Lapras is able to outspeed this Tinkaton, getting to moves quicker than Tinkaton can, so Lapras is already almost at 2 more Sparkling Arias. Nighttime Clasher is going to end up committing a shield here on the Sparkling Aria, but he's going to get outpaced. There's another Sparkling Aria ready to go, and the final Protect shield of the match comes out for Nighttime Clasher. Nighttime has to worry about a combo from Feraligatr. He banks the move, switches into the Lapras, but no combo comes through from Out of Pocket. Instead, he's just going to stay in with his Lapras, knowing his Lapras is a wall to this energy. Sparkling Aria, even a second one will not be enough to knock out here. So he's just going to let it all go, as this is where he wants Nighttime energy to be thrown. And he is getting closer and closer to that Skull Bash. Skull Bash is reached, not only boosting up his defense, but inflicting big damage onto Nighttime Clasher's Lapras. So the Skull Bash is going to connect, getting his opponent very low. There's the snipe play. The Shadow Feraligatr saved the 7 Shadow Claws of energy from earlier in the match. Hydro Cannon knocks out the Lapras, denying that energy. Tinkaton has energy. Nighttime Clasher going for the Play Rough. Out of Pocket with the no shield. Play Rough connects, but it's just not enough damage. He knows his matchups too well. He's going to survive, make the Hydro Cannon, and Pocket survives to play another game, but he's going to have to get 2 more wins if he wants to make Grand Finals. For game number 4, it's a dominant lead win as he leads Diggersby into Tinkaton. A pivot out into the Malamar, and we're going to see Out of Pocket stay in this matchup to start with here, and he actually goes for the Scorching Sands, understanding that Nighttime Clasher might be a bit reluctant to superpower so early in his switch timer. So the Scorching Sands is going to land. Now there's the switch to Tinkaton, and Tinkaton is going to do a good job at neutralizing energy from the switch-locked Malamar. Malamar's superpower does do quite a lot of damage, but each successive superpower is going to do less and less damage. So if Out of Pocket didn't shield the first, he's definitely not going to shield the second, since it will do less damage. Superpower number 2 is going to connect. Out of Pocket looking to guarantee the matchup by firing off this Bulldoze. Nighttime Clasher not wanting to shield up such a low damaging move, he's just going to let the Malamar go. He will have an ability to send in his Lapras here, and that's exactly what he's going to do, as he's going to try and get Lapras energy in an attempt to win this game. Out of Pocket going to be full sending the player up. He just wants damage on the Lapras. Nighttime Clasher getting the shield call right, which is very clutch. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to get a farm down, so he is forced to fire off the Sparkling Aria. But for Out of Pocket, he just had the perfect line call. He has Malamar in the back to help shut down this Lapras, so he now gets to send in the Malamar. There's the switch to Tinkaton, answered with a shield advantage Diggersby. And we've had a lot of dynamic games so far. This one really felt like one of the first games where it was just entirely decided off of alignment. There was a dominant lead-win matchup. Pocket was able to chip and then send in Tinkaton to absorb Malamar's energy. And in the endgame, Malamar is just brilliant at shutting down Lapras. We do actually see a Scorching Sands debuff as well. That was not needed to win this game, but it certainly helped secure things. Another Scorching Sands is going to come through. This is going to be getting the shield from Nighttime Clasher. And another Scorching Sands debuff. Oh my goodness, it's now 2 stages debuffed. Pocket's not even going to shield here, and this is extremely over. Play Rough is going to land. There's the switch to the Lapras, answered with the Malamar. And the reason why this matchup is so bad is every Psywave from Lapras is triple resisted by the Malamar, so they do exactly 1 damage. So for Malamar, a Pokemon that has a pretty healthy HP stat, unfortunately, you're just realistically never going to be able to farm it down. So Lapras is going to be able to grab a shield, but Malamar now just gets to farm up to the back-to-back charge attacks. The first superpower is going to be Good Night to the Lapras, and there's another superpower loaded. It's going to be 1 stage debuffed, but it's going to be plenty enough to KO this Tinkaton. And Pocket has battled back from being down 2-0. Oh, looks like he will need a Psywave after. And now we go to a decisive Game 5. In this final match, it's a good lead for Pocket. Tinkaton into Shadow Jumpluff. Now he's running an ABB style team. And this is a team composition that he has used before, where he's trying to lure out the Malamar with a Diggersby safe switch, beat it with the Tinkaton, and then Lapras will be able to sweep in the endgame. Last time this happened, Nighttime Clasher did actually bring the Malamar into the Diggersby, and it worked out very, very nicely for Out of Pocket. So Out of Pocket going for a similar idea. The slightly uncomfortable thing about this matchup is that Tinkaton is at a pacing disadvantage. It's 7 to the first for both, but then for the Acrobatics, it's 6 going forward. Whereas now, we will see Pocket commit a shield. He's hoping that Nighttime will just play the 0-1 shield and let the Tinkaton be healthy. But Nighttime Clasher, he is not going to let that happen. He will commit the shield knowing he can outpace, and while Acrobatics does not knock out, it does quite a lot of damage. Pocket is going to end up letting this go. Acrobatics lands, Tinkaton now very, very low, firing off a Play Rough. Nighttime Clasher with the double shield, and this is where things will get very, very interesting. Pocket's going to pivot into the Diggersby, fishing for that Malamar bait out. Nighttime Clasher banks in Acrobatics, but that's not the Malamar. He makes the read. He sends in Diggersby, and with that singular play, Nighttime Clasher is going to win this game number 5. Pocket set up the bait out line once again, but Nighttime Clasher not falling for it. Pocket doesn't know it yet, but he is in serious trouble. Scorching Sands comes through, an attack drop as well. A bad situation gets even worse, but Nighttime Clasher makes a massive error. He doesn't overfarm. He throws the Scorching Sands, and this helps burn Pocket's switch clock. Pocket now can switch into the Lapras, preserve 100 energy on that Diggersby, and that attack drop is reset. Nighttime Clasher maybe could have swapped there. His switch clock was a half second up, but he's going to fire off the Scorching Sands. That's going to further misalign the timers, and now switch back into the Jump Fluff. He has the Acrobatics banked. He ends up going for an Aerial Ace bait that gets the shield from Pocket, and Pocket is now forced to fire off the Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria is going to be picking up the knockout onto the Jump Fluff, but that bait honestly proves to be a pretty nice one for Nighttime. In comes the Malamar, but here's where this energy from Pocket is so devastating because he has an energy advantage in this matchup. He's going to land the Sparkling Aria. There's the switch to the Diggersby, and the charge attacks that Nighttime threw earlier that desynced the timer are now what cost him this game, as he doesn't have energy. He doesn't have the switch clock. His Malamar gets back-to-back comboed by the Diggersby. That's going to pick up the knockout. In comes the Diggersby for Nighttime Clasher. Nighttime Clasher is farming up here, going to go for a Fire Punch to pick up the KO, and it's all up to Lapras. Lapras does have some HP remaining. I don't think it's quite Scorching Sands range, but with the quick attacks, it's going to be very close. It all comes down to this. Who advances to the grand finals? Does Scorching Sands KO the Lapras? It does not! And Lapras, 1 HP remaining, hangs on, makes the Sparkling Aria, taking out the Diggersby, and Out of Pocket wins back-to-back-to-back elimination games, and he advances to the grand finals against Snots. Now, Snots, like Nighttime Clasher and Out of Pocket, is running Malamar. Malamar actually finished first, second, and third in this tournament. To round out the rest of the team, he has Furret, Corviknight, Tinkaton, Unova Stunfisk, and Lapras. Since Pocket's coming out of the loser side of the bracket, he has to win 2 best-of-5s to be crowned champion. And it's a very familiar lead matchup, leading Malamar into Tinkaton. And Pocket has already showed the play pattern he likes here. He likes going for this Superpower and Dip, because he gets some very nice chip damage, so Superpower is able to connect, and then suddenly, this is a fine matchup for the Jump Fluff. So he gets to send in the Jump Fluff. There isn't an amazing response to a Jump Fluff for Snots, so we'll stay in here and fire off the Play Rough, and he's actually going to continue to stay in this matchup. Another Play Rough is reached, and for Pocket, he knows that this is not going to threaten a knockout, so he's very comfortable letting this go. Additionally, his switch clock is already almost up. He's burned over half of the switch clock. So now he gets to fire off an Acrobatics. Acrobatics will land, getting his opponent extremely low. He's going to think about the farm down, but decide against it, going for the Aerial Ace. Snots instantly no-shielding. More than happy to concede the Tinkaton. Now, he's going to send in Malamar. Malamar looking for a farm down, but the Acrobatics is reached. The Jump Fluff just a little bit too tanky. Acrobatics is going to force the shield, and now Pocket will aggressively pivot into his own Malamar. This game could get a little bit tricky because he has a Diggersby in the back and Snots has a Lapras. But Pocket knows that his Malamar should be in a pretty nice position, especially because he's up a shield. So he is going to no-shield the first, fire off a foul play, and Snots is going to no-shield as well. Snots will be able to grab a shield by firing off the foul play. So now we're at shield parity, but if you look at the energy, Pocket will be able to outpace. He already has a move banked. He's going for the harder hitting superpower. Snots knows he's in trouble because Lapras will never be able to farm down this Malamar. Snots overfarms with the Malamar, but it's Pocket with a soul read catch. The perfect prediction, absorbing that foul play onto the very low health Jumpluff as he's done so many times. And now he knows he can bring back in the Malamar. Malamar, he's going to actually overfarm here, commit the shield, knowing that the Psy Waves from the opposing Malamar will never farm him down. And now he can look to throw the foul play and guarantee land a superpower into what's in back. He doesn't know it yet, but based on how Snots was protecting whatever was in back by shielding the Malamar, he knows he's in a great spot. Now he gets to unleash superpower. Superpower into the Lapras will do big damage, switch clocks up, and now he gets to send out Diggersby. And Diggersby will be able to make the Scorching Sands. Snots knows he needs 2 moves. He cannot get there, and for out of pocket, fighting his way through the losers bracket, starting at day number 1, it's a statement win in the grand finals. For game number 2, Malamar is going to be led into the other steel type, which is Corviknight. Corviknight, Sand Attack, not doing a whole lot of damage. For out of pocket, he can look to overfarm quite significantly, and he will go for the foul play bait. Foul play will still inflict some pretty solid damage here. And obviously, after foul play, you're not forced to switch out, but he again gets another soul read catch. The perfect prediction, catching the Iron Head onto Diggersby. Diggersby going to be answered with Furret. And for out of pocket, this is honestly not the worst. Furret is going to make the Trailblaze on the CMP tie to the Scorching Sands. Trailblaze will be able to boost up the attack of the Furret, but Diggersby is very, very bulky. So Diggersby is able to absorb that super effective damage and return fire with the Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands is going to be no shielded by the Furret. Will we see the attack drop? Yes, we will. And now Furret's attack has been sent back to normal. It's going to be a charge attack priority tie, Swift to the Fire Punch, and Pocket more than happy just to let the Diggersby go as the Furret exits, not boosted, and on top of that, it's actually going to exit with no energy as well. So 9 Psy Waves from the Malamar and the foul play are going to remove Furret from the field of play, as Furret is not going to use a shield. In comes Tinkaton, and there's nothing Pocket loves more than a debuff and dip. He's farming up to the back-to-back superpowers. We will see the shield from Snots. And so Snots is actually trying to protect the Tinkaton here. But Pocket is now going to save that energy, switch into the Jumpluff, answered with the Corviknight. But Corviknight has already taken so much damage throughout the course of this match that for Jumpluff, this matchup is suddenly playable. Jumpluff has shields to hide behind as well, going to invest the shield. Already almost at an Acrobatics plus an Aerial Ace. Full sending the Acrobatics at the Corviknight. Snots is going to let it go. The Acrobatics is going to land. And we're going to see Jumpluff able to outpace. And now Snots knows he's in a lot of trouble. He is just going to let the Corviknight go. But he's done no damage to the Jumpluff. The Jumpluff is still basically full HP. So in comes the Tinkaton, firing off the Play Rough. Pocket is going to no shield because he knows he can survive too, and he's just looking to make it to these Acrobatics. He gets the Acrobatics. Snots still with a Protect Shield to hide behind, not going to use it here, knowing there is a superpower banked on that Malamar. So the Acrobatics is going to land, another Play Rough coming through. Pocket not going to use the shield, knowing that even though he's in the yellow, as the normal Jumpluff, he can actually survive. He is going to be able to make another Acrobatics on very low health. Snots cannot afford to shield this. A superpower does more, so he is going to let it go. And now Malamar has to try and Psy Wave down. He's going to go for the Bulldoze. Bulldoze is going to be shielded. Snots just needs another Bulldoze, and he can secure this game to win. But does he have enough health remaining? He does not. And out of pocket is now 1 win away from a bracket reset. And now it's Pocket's turn to be the Tinkaton leading into a Malamar. And Snots is going to execute a very similar play, going for the debuff and dip. So he is going to be firing off this superpower. Pocket with an O shield, and now he is going to switch into Lapras, but Lapras has an answer. In comes Malamar, and Malamar has such a dominant win matchup here that this is going to be very difficult for Snots to fight back. Because as we take a look at their final Pokemon, it's Tinkaton, and it's going to be the Diggersby. So unless switch advantage is flipped, this is looking like a dominant position for out of pocket. Pocket is going to get the superpower on charge attack priority. Lapras gets outpaced in this matchup. It only was a charge attack priority tie because Lapras had a small energy head start. In comes Tinkaton. Tinkaton, these fairy winds are adding up, but it will immediately be met with a superpower. Superpower not only limits farm, but it's also going to do a nice job of just getting a little bit of chip damage and putting it into Scorching Sands range. So a full farm down for the Tinkaton. Tinkaton energy is very good in most matchups, but not against the Diggersby. In comes the Diggersby, and this is going to be so tough. I just don't really see a way out for Snots. He's going to make another play rough, but another no shield from Diggersby, and Diggersby will still comfortably be in the yellow health. Not even close to the red health, and now Diggersby gets to go straight for the Scorching Sands. Tinkaton has to start shielding because without the Tinkaton, there's no real way of getting rid of Out of Pocket's Tinkaton, which is still outside of superpower range. He is going to go for a Bulldoze bait. Pocket thinking about calling it, but he is going to shield at the last second. So he does get baited, going for another Scorching Sands. Snots is going to invest the final Protect Shield, but that Tinkaton in the bag for Pocket just looks so difficult to beat, and with no more shields to hide behind, this is going to be a game that I just don't think Snots will be able to win. Pocket at this point realizes the win con is the Tinkaton. He's going to let it go, bring in his own Tinkaton, and fire off the Bulldoze. Bulldoze is going to be super effective damage. It will not be enough to knock out here. We do see the defense drop, and that's going to make this farm down slightly easier for Pocket. Pocket knows he can't shield this. He is going to let it go. In comes the Malamar. Psywave's adding up, but the Play Rough is reached, and with no shields left for Malamar to hide behind, Play Rough is going to pick up the knockout. And that's game over. Out of Pocket resets the bracket 3-0, and we go to one final best of 5 for the championship. This final best of 5 was a hard-fought series, back and forth, until it was tied 2-2. In the decisive game 5, Feraligatr makes a return for Out of Pocket, and it's met with a familiar foe in Tinkaton. Tinkaton over-farming, watching for a catch, but no catch comes through as Pocket is going to instantly land the Hydro Cannon, dealing devastating damage. We will see the Bulldoze bait shielded up by Pocket, and Pocket does have Tinkaton and Diggersby lurking in the back. So, honestly, he doesn't necessarily need to bait out the Malamar, but getting switch advantage would be very valuable. Snots is going to try and make a play for switch advantage, but all Pocket has to do is double shield and switch advantage will be secured, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So he is going to be shielding up that play rough. He will be able to get a full farm down here, and now this Shadow Feraligatr exits with energy. In comes Lapras. Lapras going to be met with back-to-back Hydro Cannons. This does set a pretty significant farm for the Lapras. Pocket throws the Hydro Cannon. He's now going to pivot, and he sends in the Tinkaton. On paper, this is the alignment Snots wants, as his Malamar gets to avoid the Tinkaton, but there are some problems. There's a Hydro Cannon banked on the Feraligatr. The Tinkaton, at full health, survives 2 Sparkling Arias, and his Lapras is already below half health, which means a Play Rough will actually be threatening. So another Sparkling Aria is going to connect. Pocket's lack of shields not punishing him in this matchup, as he can survive 2, and now he goes for the Play Rough. Snots knows he's in trouble here. He is going to be letting this through, leaving it all up to the Malamar. Malamar is going to get outpaced, and Pocket knows he has to full send here. That way, he can guarantee that if the Malamar shields, he gets the combo with the Feraligatr, and Feraligatr is going to hit the field once again. This Hydro Cannon will inflict massive damage onto the Malamar. Malamar barely clinging to its last little amount of HP. In comes Diggersby, and Diggersby will take super effective damage from superpower, but with each superpower, there's a cost. Your attack gets lowered. The first doesn't even do half. Snots knows he doesn't have the damage to win this game, and Out of Pocket is the Milwaukee regional champion. He lost early on day 1, had to win 11 straight matches. This includes 8 best of 3 series and 3 best of 5 series. In this tournament, he had 13 games where if he lost, he was out of the tournament, and he won every single time. This run firmly puts Malamar on the map in this Tinkaton meta. Even with a fairy type being top usage, Malamar proved to be absolutely uncounterable at times, and with it taking the gold, silver, and bronze in Milwaukee, for future tournaments coming up here in the next few weeks, every trainer will have to keep in mind, how does Malamar match up into their team? Thank you so much for watching. This is More Slice Henry, my second channel. My name is Home Slice Henry. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel if you have not. And I'll see you guys in the next one.